3D Skybox. We've always needed to render a world that feels larger than our map limitations allow. In Half-Life 1, we used a cube map texture to let players see beyond the playable area. But in Half-Life 2, we wanted that view into the larger world to be dynamic, not just a static texture. Our map size limitation was about half a mile in each dimension, but we realized we could create a much larger outer world if we stored it at a reduced scale. So, we invented what we called the 3D Skybox. The 3D Skybox is a small box hidden within the actual game map containing geometry at 1/16th scale. Inside it, a reference point corresponds to a matching origin in the main map. Then, when we render the space beyond the playable area, we use the geometry from the 3D Skybox, positioned by that reference point and scaled up 16 times. Getting the lighting and fog to blend seamlessly across the transition from the main map to the Skybox presented some sticky challenges, but it worked. The result made the world feel significantly larger and more immersive than it had in Half-Life 1.
.357 Intro. The Magnum, unlike the basic handgun with its slower rate of fire, is meant to be fired in a more measured, calculated way, dealing catastrophic damage to your target. Earlier versions of the Magnum had a bit of random dispersion, which we felt fit the heft and the less sensitive trigger pull of a larger pistol. However, this led to anticlimactic moments where players would carefully line up a shot only to miss due to the accuracy penalty. To address this, we made the first bullet perfectly accurate, with each subsequent shot becoming less accurate as you blasted away.
VMPI. During development, we became increasingly frustrated with our slow gameplay iteration speeds, mainly because map compilation, needed to pre-compute lighting and visibility, was taking hours. Computers in 2000 were far slower than today's, and they had only a single CPU core each. Inspired by SETI at Home, a distributed program that used PCs worldwide to analyze radio waves for signs of extraterrestrial life, we built VMPI, which was our own distributed system that spread the map compilation process across many office computers. Today, these kinds of distributed systems run on giant GPU clusters, but at the time we just ran it on all the computers in our office. To deal with how our lighting code was evolving as quickly as our maps were, VMPI also distributed new exe files to everyone's computer too. In retrospect, this was a pretty terrifying security concept, just awfully bad. It's like the stuff of nightmares for IT folks. Because we were sending an arbitrary executable to all of our work PCs, and they would just run it. It was absolute madness. But it worked for us, and it did significantly increase our map iteration speed, and as a result, it ended up being a crucial tool.
Mounted gun. The mounted guns were added here to help train the player on the gun's effectiveness against the attack helicopter for the final battle in the reservoir. This was necessary because up to this point, the helicopter was invulnerable to the player's weapons, and we had to give some indication that it could be harmed with larger weaponry. This was only somewhat effective in playtest due to the amount of pressure the player was under at the moment, which led us to developing the particle effects and sounds that would sell to the players that they were really doing damage.
helicopter bombing run. This is another example of us creating movement hazards while driving the airboat. The helicopter attempts to stay in front of the player when dropping bombs, and if the player backtracks, it switches to hovering and turns to attacking the player. In one playtest, a bomb just so happened to drop between the pipe seams, creating a pretty cinematic moment. The playtester had a positive reaction, so the team decided to script it so it happened every time. This process has become part of our organic design process. Every so often, a cool thing randomly happens in a playtest. We find a way to make it happen more reliably.
Smokestack collapse. When making a cinematic action game like the first Half-Life, we'd always wanted to make some big, spectacular destruction sequence, but we were never quite able to do anything like that. Half-Life 2's physics introduced a system for breaking physics small objects, such as crates, into pieces, which provoked the idea of doing something much bigger. We took a leap and tried breaking a smokestack into pieces as it fell. So we experimented with the masses until it felt better, refined the model, and added lots of smoke and audio to sell the effect. And there we had it. We had our big spectacular destruction moment. Ultimately, our physics made the sequence just barely possible in a way that maybe seems quaint by modern standards, but felt really awesome at the time. Because the simulation was unique every time we ran it, we had to take steps to avoid completely blocking the player's path with the big chunks of debris. The success of this sequence whet our appetites for the much higher fidelity cinematic physics destruction effects next seen in Episode 2.
Displacements I. After Half-Life 1 shipped, our level designers and artists wanted a better solution for outdoor environments, so we built the first version of our terrain system. It was based on subdivided quads. To visualize this, imagine a flat square divided into a grid, where each point on the grid can be moved up or down. Level designers could lay out multiple squares and then use a paintbrush tool to shape hills and valleys by adjusting the grid points. For rendering, we used a special blended texture, which combined two different textures. Each grid point specified how much of each texture to use, allowing smooth transitions between surfaces like sand, grass, dirt, and gravel. This type of terrain system wasn't unusual in game engines at the time, and we naively thought it would be enough for our game designers.
Washing machine puzzle. We created the washing machine physics puzzle late in development, after playtesting indicated that players needed some downtime from the relentless pressure from the helicopter. Pacing contrasts like this can accentuate the high moments by resetting the player's emotional state and warding off exhaustion or even boredom. It was a positive sign that players reacted so strongly to all the work done to make the helicopter truly menacing, but if we didn't manage the stress of it, fatigue set in, which quickly started to feel like monotony rather than excitement. Originally, players quickly drove through this area, but because of the nice sunlight and composition of the canal here, we decided it was a good spot to pause the action and have the player spend some quiet time solving a puzzle. The puzzle itself, which was the first to use masses and pulleys, ended up giving rise to other physics navigation puzzles elsewhere in the game.
Displacements II. Once the initial terrain system was up and running, we expected level designers to use it for outdoor spaces. Instead, they began experimenting, adding detail in unexpected places. They used the subdivided quads on the top of walls to create ruined edges, rounded off street curbs, and even attempted to make pipes. This met with varying success since the terrain system was designed for landscapes, not architectural detail. So we returned to the code mines, transforming the height-based terrain system into a fully 3D displacement system. Now, instead of only moving grid points up and down, designers could move them in any direction. This allowed them to add extra detail to all kinds of surfaces using blended textures to smooth transitions between the displacement quads and the BSP geometry. However, this required additional tech work to ensure consistent lighting between the two renderers, or those edges would have been noticeably mismatched. But with all this done, the level designers seemed satisfied, and we naively thought that this time it really would be enough. Displacements III. With the general displacement system in hand, level designers didn't stop at adding detail to the world and returned to their original goals of building large-scale outdoor sections. This led to another round of updates to balance performance, ensuring the system could handle both fine detail and larger ground terrain. Texturing had to improve as well, especially to support complex structures like overhanging cliffs that weren't possible with the original height-based system. Designers, never one to rest on their laurels, also started using displacements to create caves and tunnels. While these additions looked great, they required even more technical adjustment. Eventually, we managed to wrangle the competing requirements of all the ways that displacements were being used, and they shipped in large sections of our game world. Looking back, displacements are a clear example of how technology and game design evolved together. It's a chicken and egg problem. We can't foresee all the ways a piece of tech will impact the game, but we also can't build the tech without knowing what it needs to accomplish. So, as is always the case, we have to build something. We start with a solid guess and see where it leads us.
wouldn't believe it if I couldn't see it with my own eyes. Dr. Gordon Freeman himself.
Just in time, Doc. We gotta move out before the Combine picks us up. Just getting ready to pull out.
We better hurry. We gotta tear down this camp and get out of here.
Greetings to the free man.
Come on in. I'll show you what you're up against. Here, take a look at this. This here's the dam. It's just up ahead. Eli's hideout is here, a stone's throw from the apron and nestled in the old hydro plant. But getting there, with that hunter chopper on your ass, next to impossible. Good news is, the Vortigaunt's working his magic on your airboat, so you'll have a little more firepower going forward. I think he's just finishing up now. Go on out.
Gestures. Each of our characters had a library of simple animations called gestures, which we could easily layer on top of other body movements. While originally planned as a production savings to allow us to reuse animations throughout the game, we found they actually had more utility than that. Humans often repeat certain movements, and these can be markers of a specific personality. As a result, our gestures library ended up capturing the essence of each character, helping to unify our animation team's understanding of who those characters were. This made it much easier for our animators to share any one character's workload among themselves, which production often required.
There we are. That gun came off one of the same hunter choppers that you're up against. I always like to bring a little irony to a firefight. Take that chopper down, and you should be able to tear on through to Eli's place.
The Freeman will accept this weapon or suffer greatly on the road ahead.
Get going, Dr. Freeman. I can see Eli was right about you.
Get going, Doc. We gotta break camp. Farewell, Dr. Freeman.
For freedom!
Give him hell, Doc.